Hey, what's going on, guys? Kevin here. This is a little bit different from the usual setup, but this is a interview that I did with Scottsquatch, the one and only Scott from Video Game Sellers, the flea market adventures of Scott and Friends. And this was recorded originally back in 2015. And for people that are very confused by that, the original premise for Select Scream was back in 2015, and I basically interviewed 3 individuals, and we'll be uploading those onto the channel. But this is an old interview, and this gets into the stuff about the show, pretty much talks to us about things with Korn, and pretty much everything else collectible for him. So, if you guys enjoyed this, and you're new to the channel, feel free to hit the bell notification and subscribe, because we'll be putting up more old interview recordings, including some from Gamestop 1 and even 8-Bit Eric, good friends of mine, and I cannot wait for you guys to be able to listen to those. But without further ado, I do apologize about the quality, because this is in 2015, and I was just trying to get back into making videos for YouTube. So without further ado, take it away, old me, from almost 10 years ago. So without further ado, guys, welcome everybody to the interview, and we're going to go ahead and introduce a relatively, I guess you could say, small YouTuber. Know that he's already passed 30,000 subs recently. Welcome, Scottsquatch, to the interview.
Thank you, man. Yeah, well, I guess what is a small YouTuber these days? Like, what would the number count be?
Well, usually people look at, like, the million subscriber amount, and then usually see, like, a minimum of 100,000, but who knows. So, welcome. It's very honored to be able to have you on here for the first time, and hopefully to try to do more of these interviews with you in the future for progress reasons.
I am definitely happy to talk with anyone that wants to talk with me. Anytime.
Unless it's like some creepers. Like, have you had any like creeper type of people actually visit you at the flea market or anything like that?
Yeah, I would say most people, most fans and stuff that come are, totally cool, very easy to talk to kind of people. But there's been a few that have come. Like, I know, in particular, one person came from overseas. He came from like the UK, and when he arrived, he basically just walked up to the booth, handed us a gift, said hello, and then said, "Okay, I gotta go," and left.
And it was probably just maybe someone's finger that he just dropped by. It's like, yeah, this is to show my devotion for the show.
Yeah, I think it was like a couple games from the UK, like a note. And I don't know if he was just really shy, maybe, but he did. He came all the way from across the seas, and obviously he was coming here for like Disney World or something. But they made the 2-hour drive down from the Disney World area to come to the market and say hi, and it literally lasted about 30 seconds. So.
Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to ask, that you're pretty active on YouTube actually answering back people's questions, and that's kind of like a rare commodity that you see on the website nowadays, because I know it's like a lot more populated with a lot more customers just looking to find some new content, and I know Alpha Mega Sin does the same thing, even though he doesn't respond to every single question. So, does it seem like it's a big shocker to a lot of people that you guys do that?
I do get a lot of people that go like, "Oh my God, did this person actually reply to me?" No one ever does, or something. But for me personally, up until 2 weeks ago, I didn't even have my own personal Facebook. So I've used YouTube for the last like 10 years as my social media. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm able to reply to so many people is I don't have a Twitter. I didn't have a Facebook, and even now with the Facebook, I'm really, it's not like I'm on there talking to a ton of people. So I still use my YouTube as the main source of communicating with, the viewers, friends, fans, anyone that basically sends a question or leaves a comment that is sort of in a question form. I usually try to reply to it.
And we can confirm that this isn't a bot that's actually answering your questions for you.
Yeah, I don't know if a bot would have as clever answers as I would.
Maybe some dirty, vulgar humor or something like that to throw in for randomness.
I pre-programmed it, yeah.
It's the Uber YouTube hacks, because I remember There was like that whole thing with the bots like early on YouTube, and it would be like subscriber bots and all this stuff, but this is like way before 2008. That's like so long ago.
Yeah, no, I remember like just it was basically just random ads that people would have, even if it was for, hey, check out my channel or check out this website or whatever. And then YouTube has definitely come a long way since then to where you can't even post the link to like a video without it getting spammed. So it's very hard to do any type of self-promoting now on YouTube these days.
Yeah, there's some people I've noticed that have actually tried to do that on some of the bigger, more popular YouTube videos, but if it's any of them that don't have a very big subscriber count, it's usually relatively clean.
Yeah.
Okay, so, well, let's go ahead and get started with one of the questions I wanted to ask. Working at Gamestop, that is like one of the big negative red signs that many people in the gaming community don't want to be associated with.
I have. I've been there around 13 years. For me, the easiest answer anytime anyone says, like, you know, GameStop this or that, it's a giant corporation. Every corporation sucks in some way. I mean, Walmart, Target, whatever. There's going to be some bad aspect to it. So it's, I mean, you can go in and you can have one negative experience, and then people like to use that as that means the entire company, everybody in the company, all 5,000 stores is a horrible place, and it's just some things get blown out of proportion. Is it perfect? Hell no. Why do I work there still? Because I get a discount. There's cool promotional items. I like video games from all eras, including new stuff and collector's editions, so I like being on top of, you know, all that kind of stuff. So if people hate GameStop, I understand why. You know, if people love GameStop, then, you know, more power to them. For me, I work there. That's all. That's my answer. I work there. That's it.
I honestly think that the mentality where people think that it's usually a big negative to go into it because the environment doesn't seem that they think it doesn't seem like it's too friendly because the people that work there, especially for some that are close to my area, that it just seems like they don't like being at there to work and they're just looking to work for the couple of hours and then just leave. Like, has there ever been any type of employee that has worked there that you might have had problems with in the past, or have you been, like, really good with everybody there?
Oh, no, I mean, of course I've had either coworkers or been into a store where someone was a douchebag, but I've also worked for, like, 10-plus companies in my life, like retail chains and stuff, and every single one of them has had shitty employees, people screwing in the back room, you know, that kind of stuff. So I mean, there's.
I think a lot of viewers would actually like to hear that one day.
Yeah, that wasn't from GameStop. That was from working in the days of Hot Topic. So that's another.
Oh, well, that would make a lot of sense because there's usually a lot of really naughty stuff that they would be selling in there.
Oh yeah, Hot Topic about 15 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago was quite the weird dungeon of weird grossness. I don't even know the right words to use for it, but it was a different place than it is now.
Yeah, because wasn't Hot Topic back then kind of very similar to what Spencer's was, or is it just like a Suncoast kind of thing?
Well, Hot Topic started off as a heavy metal or goth or just dark store. I mean, it had trench coats and big boots and spike bracelets and rock t-shirts. And then it's like every company has to do over time. They have to sort of conform to what people care about and what's going to make them money. So, I mean, they've changed over the years, and they've gone back and forth of trying to be darker, trying to be lighter, trying to be more parent-friendly. But when I first started there, it was latex and leather and spikes. That was the main materials making up the clothing there.
It sounds like a completely different store, because, like, I guess I never even been to it, like, at all once, and I figured that it was all, like, geek apparel and just comic books and stuff like that.
It's definitely the way it is, yeah. The way it is now, you walk into a GameStop, a Hot Topic, and it has, you know, like you said, tons of My Little Pony shirts and video game shirts and Adventure Time, and just it's stuff catered to a younger audience than what it used to be.
Alright, well, let's see. Continuing on with GameStop. The fact that they've gotten into the retro gaming scene again, that a lot of people have been very iffy about their business practice and determining, like, if the prices are going to be good over time. Since you happen to work in there, like, has there been anybody that has happened to bring in any retro stuff in that y'all couldn't take in?
Well, so far, at least in my area was a late adopter to it. Like, it started in like the New York City area, and I think it was Birmingham, Alabama, and then it slowly started to go to different areas. So by the time it got to our area, they had already sort of worked out a few kinks and bugs, I think, that they were having, or they just did a more simplified version. So they are taking specific games, and the systems have to be, or are supposed to be, in very good condition. We have not had a lot of people come in at least in my store, and bringing retro items, or if they have, they're ones that we can't take, or they're not on the list. So, people bringing in a bunch of sports games for like the Super Nintendo, they're not all on the list. So it hasn't blown up, hasn't taken off, and I've noticed some price adjustments in the sense of the trade values. They've actually gone down a little bit for a lot of things, and the prices online for what they're selling, I've noticed a few of them have gone down as well. So they're still feeling it out, seeing how it's going to be. I think it's just another outlet for that company to make money. And I don't see it hasn't blown up, and I don't know if it's necessarily going to blow up. It's going to be a very small growth to it, most likely, over the next couple of years.
So yeah, it's more or less what it sounds like, just more like a small bubble, but it's not going to really get as big as retro video games have gone in the past couple of years.
Yeah, people were fearing that GameStop was somehow going to change the overall world price on like retro video games. And if anything, GameStop is just sort of trying to follow along with the prices that are happening on eBay and Amazon, and trying to compete. But at least from my standpoint, it doesn't seem like it's going to be any type of major effect on oh no, now Mario World at $50 or something,
Which I don't think we'll ever see that anytime soon.
No, just too many copies.
Okay, so since we're on the topic of retail, I do want to talk about flea markets. And this is the kind of the topic that a lot of people usually don't like to talk about, especially since it's the whole reseller thing. And some people don't know this about me, is that I have my own video game store, and I know Aaron has his own game store as well. When people think reseller, do they think of the type of person you are, where it's like you're a collector but you still sell just to be able to get this stuff that you want, like, let's say, Wild Guns, if you were to ever get a copy of that?
Well, I definitely think that most people, the word reseller is obviously a really bad word, and that was like the whole reason why I even started the show Video Game Sellers, was to show that there's more than just a 35, 45-year-old man who doesn't know anything. He doesn't play games. He just looks up prices online and goes, that's what that should be. There, I'm selling it. I wanted to show that there are people that actually love games or play them or collect them, and they help either fund their own collection, or they just enjoy the hobby so much that they basically want to surround themselves 100% in it, in the sense of their job, in selling and trading them. So I would hope that, if anything, and which I do think what's happened with doing the show, is the word reseller, at least that idea, has made at least a lot of people, or some people, change their mind on, oh, it's not just, people trying to rip other people off or something. There actually are people out there that want to collect and help out other collectors.
Yeah, that's the other thing that I do like is, I do this a lot at my store, and I usually get like any sort of package deal, and I noticed that you and Aaron and some of the other resellers actually do happen to give people good deals. So I think that it's a big positive to see that there are some good sellers that are out there.
There's almost nothing that I ever would sell that is a flat price. Like, I'm at a flea market. I know I'm at a flea market. It's dirty, it's hot, it's Florida. You know, when people ask a price and I tell them, yep, that's $20, and then they go, okay, and they walk away, I'm like, feel free to haggle where you're at a flea market. I mean, this isn't a dedicated retail corporation or something. You can make you can give me a counter offer. But if people, I always say, if you want to buy 2 or 3 things, price goes down. I like that aspect. I like talking with people and negotiating and doing a deal, not just pay the price or walk away.
Yeah, because I think that helps bring the mood up a bit, is when you're haggling with those people to give them a good deal, that it's what helps produce at least a bit of traffic to come back to the booth, and that way they'll tell somebody, it's like, hey, you need to come check this guy out, he's got some good deals on his stuff. So it's good that there's more people like that, but I wish that a lot more would act like that.
At our flea market, it's a mixture of a few different reasons, but there are more game vendors at the flea market I'm at than I know of any other flea market, in the sense of people that are dedicated selling games. At least in my area. I'll speak for my area of like Central Florida. But I want to say that it kind of helps to keep the prices down or competitive, having that many people selling video games at the flea market. But at the same time, like you mentioned, by giving deals and stuff and having people come back, it definitely is known now that our booth is one of the ones that you can come to and get a deal and have a good selection, while some other booths maybe the prices are going to be a little bit higher. And it's just, you got to kind of figure that, as the buyer, figure that kind of stuff out on your own as well. There's going to be the sellers, like you mentioned, that don't want to go down in their price, then maybe just don't go back to them.
Yeah. It's funny that you actually bring that up. The old man that's across from your booth, has he gotten rid of any of the hard-to-find stuff, like the complete Vectrix and maybe the DuckTales too?
He actually sold all of the Nintendo games he had left to Aaron a few months back.
Really?
Yeah, the guy had disappeared for about a year, and he came back out and he brought all the NES games, and his price was like $300, I want to say $350, and at that price it was a little high. But what he didn't do is, in the last year, he didn't go back on like eBay or wherever he was and check to see if things had gone back up in price.
Oh wow.
So certain things that maybe were like $30 last year when he checked were now $40 or $50. So for Aaron, it still wasn't a steal, but it made way more sense this year to do it, because the guy's prices weren't the top dollar like they were last year, since the market had changed.
Yeah, that's the other thing about the whole reselling process, is that prices usually change over time, and I remember like a lot of customers that would see the prices I sold for certain things be way less last year, and then the next year they would almost double. Like,
yeah.
Has there ever been problems with people seeing the prices of retro games actually be as expensive as they are?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even from other sellers coming to like the booth wanting to buy stuff. So say like consistently there was a game that was $15, and then maybe they didn't come to the booth, or I didn't have a copy of it for 6 months, and now that game consistently sells for like $30, and I'm going to put like $20 to $25 on it. And they go, well, why is that more expensive? And it's like, are you kidding me? Like, you're in this business or whatever you want to call it, and you don't know that prices change like over time. But customer-wise, I mean, yeah, it's a little harder. You can't sort of talk that way to because they're not buying it in the sense of selling it. So it's sort of like, yeah, some of the stuff it's a collector's market with a lot of it, and it becomes either harder to find or more sought after, and then that kind of has to adjust the price on my end as a seller. Unfortunately, to you as just someone that wants to buy it, because if I didn't, then I would have other sellers coming and just basically buying them up dirt cheap from me and taking them to their booth and then charging full eBay price for it. So there's that weird middle ground. Like, what do you price it at where the seller, where the game player can still get a good deal, but you're not blowing out all your games to someone else that's just going to put them on Amazon for full price?
Okay, now there's one thing I do want to ask about customer-wise. Has Walkie Talkie Knife Guy actually at least stabbed somebody lately? Because like you would expect him to do like something dastardly and then be on the news.
I don't know if he's ever stabbed anyone. He's very intimidating. That guy is still around quite frequently. I mean, almost on like a weekly or at least a couple times a month basis. And he's actually appeared inside one of Aaron's stores, actually his mom's store. He's shown up in there a few times recently trying to like sell them cell phones or something. So he's not a violent man as far as I know, but he's a very intense man.
You would honestly think, just looking at him, that he looks like either a backyard fighter or just like some professional wrestler, because he's just got like the muscular type of stature.
I'm sure he's been in a backyard brawl at least once or twice.
Since we're still on the topic of video game sellers, that a lot of people who have seen your show early on know about a young man by the name of Joey, and we're not talking about the Joey Moneybags the Third Joey. Joey that you had worked with for the early episodes. That I know you didn't want to say anything about it in the past about the situation that happened. Was there anything particular like now that you would like to say to the audience that would have to deal with like some situation that you both had gotten into in the past, or was it just a misunderstanding?
I mean, truthfully, even back then, it's not necessarily that I never wanted to talk about it. It's that there really wasn't anything to talk about. The friendship that we had, or like sort of like the doing the show and stuff, literally ended like that. Like it was instantaneous. It was a combination of a miscommunication, not really understanding, I guess, where the two of us were kind of coming from. And one day it was just he didn't want to be a part of the show anymore. He didn't want to set up at the flea market anymore. And then he just sort of went his own way. And I honestly haven't talked to him for 2 years now, not by my choice. I never had a problem. And I mean, it all comes down to, like I said, the miscommunication of not quite understanding, I guess, what either of us were thinking the other one was thinking. I guess that's the best way of explaining it. It didn't pan out, and we no longer talk.
So, from just the sound of things, I think it's just the fact that it was video game burnout, I guess would be the case, because I've seen a lot of people try to get into the hobby and try to make some money on the side, and then it's like, you know what, this ain't for me anymore, I'm gonna try to go do something else.
Possibly, but also, I mean, I would say that because of the way the show originally started, of me, I had come off tour, I had toured a lot, and I had taken a break from coming to the flea market. Like, I've been going to that flea market for a decade now, and I used to bring things to trade and sell to Bob, the guy that's the below-the-neck Bob, I don't show his face on camera, and a couple of the other vendors. And I've been doing that since I was in my early 20s. And then I started working for the band Korn and going on tour a bunch, and I wasn't able to do a lot of garage selling or going to flea markets or anything. So when I got back into it, I started out with just, hey, I want to film some of the sellers here at the flea market. And then I was like, you know what, I kind of want to get back into maybe getting some stuff to trade and sell to then, put more money towards my personal collection. And we didn't have a good understanding or agreement of that aspect. And I think even though, like, it was obviously, can I, sell or set up a few things and sell some stuff? Yeah, sure. But at the same time, I think there was like no, I don't actually want you to do that, but I'm saying I do. And that's where the misunderstanding was coming from, was one person was thinking one thing while the other one apparently was thinking a completely opposite thing, but it wasn't being communicated.
Right. So hopefully that clears it up for a lot of the veteran watchers, I guess you could call them, that have always wanted that like legit answer since day one.
Yeah, there was never a fight. There was never anything. It literally was just bye. So not a really interesting story to it, unfortunately.
Well, either way, it's been answered, so hopefully everybody can put all the rumors to rest and we can just move on with our lives.
The chat boards can now be shut down. Power down the generators. It's all done.
It was confirmed the Illuminati had did it the entire time.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so since you brought up Korn, I think a lot of people are interested in to know, like, how it was you actually got involved with him. Was it like you had brought in some drugs to them to provoke him, or was it just, you know, the fact that, hey, I got some old video games you guys might like?
Yeah. No, when I was in my early teens, I was a huge, well, I still am, but I mean, I was a huge fan of the band. I was on their street team. I did a bunch of local promotions and stuff for them, and a combination of me actually starting to work in the music industry locally and doing stuff for Korn kind of ran into each other at one point, like in 2006, and I was talking to them quite often. Like, I'd go to their shows and be backstage or working for a venue and seeing them backstage, and it just happened to be one time, I think it was in Jacksonville, where the guitar player asked if I was interested in helping him with his little independent record label and wanting to do like the street team for the label and do promotions, and that's where the ball started to get rolling. And from there, I literally did a little bit of everything. I tour managed bands, I did online promoting, I did on the road promoting, I did merchandise, I was a bass tech for a while for the band Five Finger Death Punch.
Oh, wow, nice.
I just did all types of random stuff, and then I ended up being a personal assistant for the guitar players in Korn, and I did that for many years. As of right now, it's sort of up in the air of when the next time I'd be going out on tour, and that's one thing that's really, if you're in the music industry, there's sort of two things that always happen. You never do just one job. You are always doing 5 or 10 jobs. So it doesn't matter what position you actually have with a band. There's always another job you're doing, even if you're not getting paid for it. And then the other thing is, things can change in an instant, or you can be going out on tour one day, and then the next 6 months you could be at home for whatever reason. So it's not a normal like 9-to-5 job by any means. So. I don't know when I'm going to be heading back out on the road. Right now I have so much home stuff with buying and selling a house and doing normal life things that I can't. A lot of people ask, when are you going back on the road next? When are you going to be in my city or whatever? I want to meet up, and unfortunately I just don't have those answers.
Yeah, it's actually like that with a lot of professions, because I got friends that are in the voice acting profession, and they always usually say the same thing. It's like, don't stick with one gig. You have to always be on your feet and just show off demos and all this other stuff to try to get into these voice acting roles. So it just seems like a lot of people don't understand that it takes a lot of work to be able to do stuff like this.
Oh yeah, half of the job in industries like that is keeping the job. Like, just working at keeping your job even when you're not working, like staying in communication, making sure they don't forget you is one of the biggest things, because if a month or two goes by and you haven't been in contact with them, there's a good chance that they've moved on to somebody else.
Now, has there ever been one opportunity that you've wanted to like work with a different band, like let's say Mushroomhead, for example?
The one band, I guess, that I would really like to tour with and just be able to sort of see on a constant basis and maybe get to know more would be like Tool.
Oh, nice.
I've one of my favorite bands. The only thing is, Maynard is very weird, the singer for Tool, and the few times I have come in contact with him or met him have both been really awkward. One time he threw peanuts at me.
What?
So I don't really know. I don't really know how easy it would be to work for such an eccentric, interesting guy like that. But they're such a cool band that I think I would like to do something with them if I could.
Yeah, and the good thing about Tool is that their music is completely different than most other bands that I've ever listened to, and they're easily like one of my top 5 favorites.
You did mention Mushroomhead, and actually a couple of those guys are very cool and friends of mine, so I would not mind hanging out with them. They're definitely wild guys. They're party animals.
Yeah, they it was cool that you actually got to get some of the band members onto the side, and I was just shocked that they were like knowing like what games are and just mentioning all these different titles. I was like, holy shit, they're gamers, man.
Two of the dudes in particular in that band. I mean, one guy has tattoos of Resident Evil and all types of stuff, all up in Silent Hill, all up and down his arm. The other guy is playing games on a daily basis while on the road. So, I mean, they're very, very hardcore gamers in that band, and in a lot of bands. I mean, what do you do? What's one of the best things to do to pass time? It's to play video games. And when you're stuck in a tour bus or in a dressing room for 8 hours of the day, you know, it's great to have like a 3DS or a Vita, or, you know, if you have a 360 or, you know, whatever, you can hook up real quick and just play something to pass the time.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of weird that you see anybody reading books. Have anybody on tour actually read any books whatsoever? Is it just like all media, like TV and just CDs?
No, I mean, there's quite a few book readers, at least like from working with Korn. I know quite a few of the guys would read books. I mean, they're not like carrying around a hardback. They're obviously using like, you know, their iPad or whatever to read a book on. But I wish I read more books. I do. My attention span, it's really hard for me to get into a story. I sound like a fourth grader when I say that I like the pictures. But my wife, she reads books nonstop, and there's a couple books that she's wanted me to read that I am trying. But I like graphic novels, and I like reading about stuff. Like if it's sort of the history of something or whatever, not necessarily a story. I'm a very visual person, I guess, and I seem to have a hard time to get into a story unless I'm seeing stuff. But.
Yeah, since you brought up graphic novels, like, is there a particular one that you're currently checking out right now, or is there a particular favorite series you like to read?
For me, the ones that over the last many years that I've kept up with would be the Goon, Walking Dead, obviously, and Hellboy and like BPRD. Those are the ones that I probably actually kept reading and stayed consistent with. I've tried to. For a while, I was buying like every single thing that had a zombie in it, and I kind of burnt myself out on that. But the Goon, if you've never read it, or if whoever's listened has never read it, is a really fun, goofy, but sometimes serious graphic novel.
Well, I have to check that out because I've got like a back catalog of like comics from like the 70s all the way up to like New 52.
That's a large back catalog.
Yeah, I mean, it's like that with video games, and I've got like hundreds of titles that I need to be playing, but it's like there's so many good games in my back catalog that I don't know where to start. But I've been on Mario Maker, and the Wii U's been pretty good. So, now I forgot what. Oh, since we're continuing with like graphic novels, anything DC or Marvel related, like anything of recent memory that you've actually checked out?
I actually, like, growing up, I was never a superhero kid. I don't know why or what it was. My parents just didn't really buy me anything that kind of fit into that genre, but I never got into basically anything you could necessarily classify as a superhero. I loved the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles when I was younger, and then a few films that I've watched, like superhero-wise, like, you know, a couple of the newer Batman movies and stuff, but I've always been, it had to either be horror or really like sort of sci-fi related for me to get into in the sense of reading or movie-wise.
Alright, well, since we got done with that topic, we'll go into probably the last few that I just want to actually ask. Now, everybody knows that your favorite is got to be Silent Hill, and you've played that since the first one came out, and you said that there was like some other ones that you enjoyed, but it was obviously Silent Hill that made it to where it was your favorite game of all time. Is there a particular reason why?
Yeah, I mean, the number one reason I really got hooked on the Silent Hill games was the music, and then after that, close by would be just the atmosphere. The music was, for me being such a huge fan of Halloween, um, it it kind of took me to a different place when playing those games, and I could listen to the soundtracks by themselves. I used the soundtracks for haunted houses over the years that I did. It was just the Akira was the guy that created the music for it, and he's an amazing composer and musician. And then the atmosphere of the games was just so deep. I mean, you felt like you were not only there, but you felt like sort of you didn't know what was ever going to happen. It wasn't your typical like, oh, that door over there is going to pop open and a monster's going to come out. It was almost there's nothing going on, in that the suspense of finally what was going to happen, or with your little radio and the static you could hear when you'd finally come across that creature that was like 3 rooms away. It was so suspenseful.
All right, and continuing with Silent Hill. Now, Silent Hill 2 is what's considered to be everybody's favorite Silent Hill game out of the series. Has that ever been the case for you, or has there been another one that you've liked so much? And is there one Silent Hill game that you have thought, oh man, this is a big disappointment and I don't like it?
Silent Hill 2 would probably be my favorite as well. I mean, there's a reason why it's people's favorite. It sort of was the most polished. It's a really nice length to the game. It had Pyramid Head. I mean, he became such an iconic horror, creature in video games, and then even past that, from the few Silent Hill movies that have come out. But the second one's probably my overall favorite. But I like I like most things. I like them for all different reasons. Now, the one that I liked the least was probably Silent Hill 4, and that's because it originally wasn't even supposed to be a Silent Hill game. They sort of just tacked that onto it after it was already in development, and you can kind of tell. What's funny is that a lot of some people, that's their favorite one, and I almost wonder if it's because it is so different from the other Silent Hill games. You don't have a flashlight wandering around in the dark. There isn't tons of fog, and in general, the areas just seem bigger. Like it's not as claustrophobic in a lot of parts. So Silent Hill 4 would have been my least favorite, and I finally did get around to actually beating it after the first time I played it. Was probably 2 or 3 years later that I actually went back and beat it. And by that point, I gave it a little bit more of a chance, and I enjoyed it. It was a good game, but it's still just not like the other Silent Hill titles.
Now, is there since continuing on with horror games, is there a particular horror game that you would like to see as an HD remake? Because I know that Silent Hill 2 and 3 got an HD remake recently, but any underrated ones, like maybe Eternal Darkness or any other underrated title?
That was actually going to be my answer, was either Eternal Darkness from the GameCube. That was such an interesting horror game with what it could do, like breaking the third wall kind of thing. Or the fourth wall, sorry. But that one, and I mean, I could say some Resident Evil games, but they're obviously remaking pretty much all the good Resident Evil games. There's a lot of other horror games that I really enjoyed, but I don't think I would necessarily want to see an HD remake, because it would change so much if they tried to remake I don't know, Rule of Rose. What would you really do? A higher definition creepy kids walking around? I mean, there's really no point to remake some of them, because the idea was they were simplistic, spooky atmosphere games. You know what? I know one that I would like to see more HD remakes would be the Fatal Frame series, and that we are getting a new Fatal Frame coming out on Wii U, which is great. So I mean, I think maybe remaking some of those with the Wii U pad would just be even better than just the fact of a new one. Just go ahead and maybe do a little combination where you remake the first two as well. Those games would translate so well to the Wii U.
Yeah, I think it's kind of also disappointing that the market here in the U.S. is completely different than, let's say, Europe or Japan, because over there they're getting limited editions of certain games, like even Fatal Frame, and over here we're mostly getting the digital downloads. Now, is there any particular way that you would help try to promote the game as much as possible to possibly get a physical release, or is it seem like a non like a
Like a dead end, basically.
yeah, pretty much. If there's like any sort of way that the game can be promoted, or if it's like a dying battle that can't be salvaged.
Well, if we're talking about like the horror genre in general, I mean, it has definitely come back quite a bit in America over the last couple years, and a lot of that is thanks in part to download-only games. But unfortunately, with things like the cancellation of like Silent Hills and the Resident Evil series sort of having hit or miss with almost every game they put out, it's still the survival horror is still not like strong. It hasn't come back really strong. I think with trying to get some of these games released here, fan support has definitely helped out. I mean, if you look at, obviously a few years back with all the RPG games for the Wii that finally came out, like Xenoblade and Last Story, that was definitely a big part because of fans created petitions and just, made such a big stink about it. But regardless, if the audience isn't there to buy them, like say a physical copy or something, then the developer just isn't going to do it. And there needs to be. Will we ever go back to where Resident Evil and Silent Hill are selling as much as they were in the late '90s? Who knows? Maybe, but obviously it could be anytime soon because Silent Hill is friggin' in the trash can at this point.
Until maybe by some chance Konami hears like a lot of people even asking for the title to be released, but
they shouldn't have to, though, because there was such a huge interest in Silent Hills, and they still canceled. Obviously there was other reasons behind their cancellation of it, but to cancel it and basically be like, yeah, we're not going to do anything else with it at this time. It's like you had such a huge thing with the PT trailer, the PT demo, and so many people downloaded that, and then to just let it go and not even try to make any money off of it just is insane.
Well, at least there's the pachinko machines that are coming out,
yes!
So there's that.
Yes, the Silent Hill pachinko machine. No thank you.
Jim Sterling would be proud. Okay, so it looks like we're coming up to the 45-minute mark. It doesn't even seem like that. But one thing I do want to get out of the way is, since you work at the flea market, there has to be some weirder stories other than walkie-talkie knife guy and then like old men being creepy to females around the booth. Has there been any particular weird story that you have not recorded on camera that some people would like to hear about?
Over the years, I've kind of gotten a little bit more cautious of like what I'm putting on camera, because obviously when with an audience, from compared to 5,000, viewers to when you're getting into 20 or 30,000 viewers, you might want to be a little careful of what you're saying, or having someone else say on camera just in case if their job sees it or something like that. But I definitely do filter some of the stuff that people have said at the booth. Some things that have happened that I didn't put on camera would be a few arguments that maybe like another seller or customer have gotten in at our booth. Usually it's with like each other. It's usually not with, say myself or Aaron or anything, but there have been times where someone's come up to the booth, tried to sell us something, and then just another customer walking by tried to like snipe us, basically, like, oh, they're offering you $5, I'll give you $6. And then the person then turns around and sells it to them, and technically that's illegal because the booths are being paid for by people to be there, and if you're basically, having other people come and sell and trade stuff for free in front of your booth, then that's a big no-no. So there's been some arguments and having to get some people like kicked out because of that, and obviously I'm not going to film it because I don't want any type of lawsuit or anything.
Or any sort of like real negative backlash that could possibly affect the channel.
Yeah, I mean, I've always liked to consider the channel on the verge of being R-rated, but could easily fall back in the PG-13 category. Like, I don't censor curse words, but I don't put up, like, someone's political or racial opinions, if they go into a rant or something like that. I'll cut things like that out.
Speaking of PG-13, I do want to talk about Crazy K.
He's definitely PG-13.
Yeah, I think... I honestly think that he's probably everybody's favorite, like, top 5 character on the show.
Oh, yeah.
Like, how was it you guys met him in the first place? Because you would never think that someone like that can talk, like, so coherently and still be somehow logical? I don't know how you'd say it.
I originally met him at the game store I work at GameStop. Just him coming in, doing some trades, and and being weird and causing a scene basically. But then he kind of was like one of the guys in our area that he would go everywhere. He was at every pawn shop. He was at every game store. Everyone knew him as that crazy dude who comes in and talks gibberish and you can't really understand what's going on. But the more I was at the flea market, the more I would see him on a weekly basis. And he's not a perfect man by any means. He's had some run-ins with the law in the past, and currently he was gone away for a timeout for a while. But he actually just got out of his timeout, his big boy timeout, from what I know, a couple weeks back. I haven't seen him or talked to him since then. He did add me on my new Facebook page, so I'm waiting to hear a message or something from him or see him at some point, but I don't know if he hasn't shown up at the flea market again yet. I don't know if he's even given a shit about games anymore, but it would be interesting just to see him again, to have him say hello on camera.
Yeah, because a lot of people thought that that you were mostly joking around about, like, him actually going on trial or something like that. So that is surprising to see that it's like, yeah, that was legit.
Oh, yeah. I mean, and this is sort of, like going into this, like not wanting to give people's, like, personal things. He made no effort into trying to hide the fact that he has been to jail in the past. And it's been for dumb stuff, like maybe having sticky fingers or doing shady things that obviously I don't condone or agree with, but my whole show has been about just showing people and, showing what they do. So I never condoned the things maybe that got him in trouble, obviously, but I wasn't going to not have him on camera because he was such an interesting guy to talk with.
Okay, so it seems like we got a lot of the questions taken care of, and I honestly cannot think of any others at the moment, but probably when we do more of these in the future that I will hope to have more questions for you. I really do want to thank you again for taking your time to just sit down and just chat for a bit, even though it's almost been an hour or so.
No, that's no problem. I enjoy it, and I appreciate you wanting to talk with me. And I will come back and do it again.